Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. As you know, I'm Big Italy 42, and he is Josh Shepardson at Beachhead 50. And a lot of good arms today. Unfortunately, a lot of those good arms are at the 4 o'clock slate, the early slates. And as we look at tonight's 6-game slate, which has been about par for the course for Saturdays, but this is not a particularly enticing 6-game slate tonight. There is one pitcher and one specific pitcher that we really like tonight. So that plays perfect here on FanDuel where you only have one pitcher. And that's going to be Jake Arrieta playing on the road at Arizona. Obviously, Arizona's a tough offense, but much better against lefties than they are against righties, as we saw in that game last night. Well, more so late than early. But either way, he's by far your top option. I know that you agree here. And, as you're looking at the total here, it's a 8-run total. Arrieta minus 125 favorite. But, skill-wise, he's by far the best pitcher. 27% strikeout rate. He's got a ground ball rate of 51%. A lot of things going in his favor. Both righties and lefties under a 270 WOBA. So, this one's a no-brainer. If you're brave enough to play cash games tonight, it's Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, I'm reminded of an older South Park episode right now where CeeLo was on, and I want to say it was Cartman's just like, I love all of your hit song. Well, we have all of the big arm tonight. It's just Jake Arrieta and nothing else. Like, the rest of the slate looks pretty ugly. You can look at Mike Bolsinger as a big favorite against the Padres at home. Like, yes, he's fine. The price point's good. If you're in GPPs, maybe you like Ruby De La Rosa's strikeout upside against the Cubbies. They strike out a ton. De La Rosa misses bats. But you got to worry about the guys that hit left-handed against him, like Fowler at the top of the order, Rizzo hitting third, probably Miguel Montero. Madden's pretty good about exploiting these platoon splits. I'm guessing Montero probably hits cleanup tonight. But any left-handed bats are going to pose some problems for De La Rosa, so there's some issues there. My second favorite pitcher on the mound tonight is a guy making his second start in the big leagues, Mike Wright. So that kind of speaks volumes about what kind of pitching slate we've got. Yep. You can look at the Cardinals game. I clearly like Volquez more than Lackey. Lackey's a fine arm. Volquez is a slight favorite. But the Cardinals beat up on right-handed pitching pretty well. And Volquez, while he's been awesome this year pounding the strike zone, I don't even know who this guy is. He's not walking anybody. Just some concerns there because the Cardinals lineup's very good, and they get to add a designated hitter to the fold because they are playing in an American League ballpark. So you and I both hate Dan Herron. We always hate Dan Herron. The O's are a good offense against right-handed pitching. Yes, they are without a DH because they're in the National League ballpark. And yes, they strike out a lot, but Dan Herron doesn't have the type of stuff to exploit their issue with strikeouts. So, we're running through the entire pitching slate, and it is just ugly. It's Arrieta you should be owning on almost all of your rosters. If you're on a multi-pitcher site, maybe you have to dip into Bolsinger and Wright, but otherwise, like, GPP onlys on Ruby De La Rosa, Bolsinger, and Mike Wright, and then beyond that, maybe some Volquez and nothing. Like, I want no part of anyone else.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like you said, Dan Herron, one of the lowest swinging strike rates in the league, under 6%. Not fooling anybody. Those Baltimore bats got a ton of power, top to bottom. Same thing with the Cardinals, where you said, all good hitters from top to bottom. There's really no big weakness there, and Volquez has been pitching well, but not a guy that I have confidence in, and it's going to be ugly. I'm with you there. I think for GPPs, I'll probably be going Wright or De La Rosa, and cash games, going to be Arrieta. If you want to get crazy and stack somebody in your cash games, maybe you go with Bolsinger, but yeah, I'm with you. Not a lot to like here at pitcher today. All right, as we move on to catcher, of course, there's a game in Coors Field. Of course, we didn't mention either pitcher because both pitchers are expected to get rocked, as they do in Coors Field. And after last night's debacle where we all thought the game was going to get canceled, then they get to 8.5 innings and sit, an hour and a half, and then bring it back in. The Rockies made it a game. They scored a couple runs in the bottom of the ninth. But, 19 runs scored on that one last night, just like we all expected. Well, maybe we didn't expect 19, but we expected some fireworks. But either way,
it took forever, which was craziness.
Yeah.
we were looking at a pitcher's duel through about 5 or 6 innings, and I'm just like, what is going on at Coors Field right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, both teams eventually erupted like expected, and as you said, 19 runs. Good God!
I think the first hit was I think it was Vogelsong. One of the pitchers hit a double. I think it was the first hit of the game, and I was like, Man, I didn't feel bad at that point about not having cores in my cash games, and then, like you said, it just exploded. But no surprises there. Of course, no surprises here either. Buster Posey, your top option, $4,500 against Jordan Lyles. If you want some other cores exposure, Hundley or McHenry, whichever one's in the lineup at 3K. But keep in mind there's also a early game today, so make sure you see who's in the lineup early, who's in the lineup late. We're going to see some different changes there tonight.
Yeah, and I would expect Posey to be in the lineup probably for both games, which means that Brandon Belt will probably be out for one of the games. I would guess that you'll see Posey catch one game and play first in the other. My guess being that he'll probably play first in the first game and catch the second game, because why would you have him catch an early game immediately following such a late finishing game last night? That's just an educated guess. I don't know that for certain, but just trying to use a little bit of logic here, which is scary. I try not to use logic too often.
There's no logic in Coors Fields.
But a quick correction, it does look like, and I just wanted to be 100% sure, it looks like David Hale's going to be the late starter and Lyles is going to be the early starter. So actually a more favorable pitching matchup. Lyles tough on right-handed batters, so looks better for Posey to face Hale. Grab whichever catcher isn't starting the early game for the Rockies. I can't imagine they're going to have poor Nick Hundley catch 2 games today after catching last night. So my guess, again, guessing Michael McHenry will catch the early game since they played a late game last night, and Hundley catches game 2. Beyond that, we'll look outside of Coors for some options, and we actually have a few today, which is nice. I love Miguel Montero at $2,900. As long as he's catching, which he should be. Ross got to start last night because he's the personal catcher for John Lester, but Montero, left-handed. Ruby De La Rosa struggles with lefties. And then if you want to go down narrative street, Miguel Montero playing against his former club, the Diamondbacks, who dealt him this offseason, gets to go back home and maybe stick it to him a little bit with a team that's winning. Beyond that, if it looks like Andrew Susac could start for the Giants in the second game, which is, as I said, I think Susac will probably start the first game with Posey playing first. But if by chance they leak that he's expected to start the second game, it makes for an interesting catching play at only $2,600 at Coors Field. So definitely keep an eye on the lineups and what's expected to happen. Otherwise, I'm not seeing a heck of a lot at catcher today. So it's basically Coors or Miguel Montero.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. As we move to first base, Anthony Rizzo is going to be my favorite play. Ruby De La Rosa struggles with lefties, as we know. I already kind of mentioned that a little bit. Chase Field, of course, a great park for him. So he's going to be your top option. Goldschmidt's going to be a great GPP play because Arrieta will be your most popular pitcher. But you're certainly not paying for him in cash games, at least I'm not. Elsewhere, of course, Brandon Belt, you mentioned. Assuming he's in the lineup for the second game tonight, he's in play. Willen Rosario, of course. And then I know there's a couple cheaper guys you're looking at. So who you got down there?
Before I dig into the cheap guys, I'm definitely going to mention Eric Hosmer against John Lackey. Really like the lefty-righty matchup there. But you're right. I do like some cheap guys. Albert Pujols gets to face a knuckleballer tonight in Stephen Wright. $2,800 can definitely do some damage if that knuckleball's just coming in there like a meatball as opposed to a dancer. Kendrys Morales, switch hitter, $2,700, so he's going to get the platoon advantage against John Lackey. People will be chasing his big game last night, but still a strong play. Matt Adams opposite him playing against Edinson Volquez. Lefty versus a righty, favorable for Adams, not favorable for Volquez. And then the other cheap name that I really like a lot, especially in GPPs, Mike Napoli gets a lefty and C.J. Wilson, $2,500. Napoli's been hitting for power lately, kind of waking up a little bit. So I like him quite a bit at home against C.J. Wilson, especially at his price.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. He's got big-time upside, near minimum salary, too. As we move to second base, D. Gordon only had 12 steals on the day going into yesterday, and now he has 16. He ran wild yesterday against Baltimore. Finally got on base a couple more times. He was really struggling at the plate over the past about week. But got to like him at that price tag. Just $3,400 tonight in a fine matchup against Stephen Wright. You got to think if he gets on base, he's going to be running wild once again. And, obviously not 4 steal upside tonight, but $3,400 is a great price for him, especially in your cash games. And, he's got upside for tournaments, too, without power.
Yeah, definitely. And as we mentioned, Stephen Wright, Steve Wright. We got two Wrights. We got Mike Wright and Steve Wright, and I did refer to him as the wrong Wright. We got Mike Wright pitching for the Orioles.
The right, not the wrong
Yes,
right.
correct. He's making only a second big league start, and he throws predominantly fastball. So Gordon probably not going to be fooled. At least he can get in there, put the ball in play, and I like his odds of getting on base. Jimmy Paredes going opposite him, second base eligible here on FanDuel. Switch hitter, so he's going to get. Well, he's actually not going to get the platoon advantage against Herron. He's going to get his personal platoon advantage facing a righty, but not going to get the optimal side against Herron. A little more on that later in the pod. Colton Wong looks pretty good. Hitting leadoff. Gets to hit left-handed against Volquez. Volquez susceptible against lefties. Panic, assuming he's in the lineup. Coors Field, you know the rest. DJ LeMahieu, ditto. Howie Kendrick, good lineup spot. Don't love the matchup with Ian Kennedy, but you got to like anybody hitting in the top 3 or 4 in the Dodgers lineup. Yeah, they hadn't been putting up runs. They did finally break that little scoreless streak last night.
Barely.
But still on the season, I'm going to look at the season-long numbers. They're still the best offense in baseball against righties on the year. They're going to snap out of it. Love Dustin Pedroia at $3,000. Gets a lefty, hammers lefties for his career. So great play there. And then digging deeper, not seeing a ton that I like. Maybe you grab Spangenberg as a near punt. But that's about it. I'm not going to really deviate far from the top of the list because the top of the list is fairly cheap in terms of a top of a list. I mean, $3,400 for your most expensive second baseman is pittance compared to what you pay for a top player at any other position on the diamond.
Yeah, and on a 6-game slate, when you have some obvious top options there's not much need or reason to swerve completely off those guys because there's not going to be a lot of second basemen that score highly tonight. So
nope.
Keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. As we look at third base now, you're, of course, looking at Chris Bryant. He's got crazy power. Got to love him. Nolan Arenado at home at Coors Field. He does get a righty, but he's done fairly well against righties this year. And then I know that you like Matt Carpenter. I like Matt Carpenter as well. He's just like, it seems like he's just the most consistent hitter in the game. I mean, he always puts the ball in play, always gives you good at-bats, showing some power. He's got an ISO over 200 this year, too.
Yeah, I recently referred to him in an article as Joey Votto light, and I'm going to stick with that assessment. Doesn't walk quite as much as Votto, but he does walk quite a bit. Doesn't strike out much. And like Votto, hits a ton of line drives and does not give away many outs by pop-out. So, I mean, it's really a very similar profile, much better against righties than lefties. So, love Carpenter. Hit second, like the lineup spot. Actually like that he dropped a spot because he's got a little bit more RBI potential with Wong coming up in front of him instead of the order wrapping around and the pitcher coming up for him. Still going to have that run score potential because he's hitting in one of the top 2 spots. So really like that lineup move for Carpenter. As you said, Arenado at home. He's not a guy that I expect to get a day off. I think he'll play both games of the doubleheader. He's young. He plays premium defense, so they're not going to want to lose that in either game. I believe my favorite play at third base tonight, though, is Manny Machado. And as I said, more on Dan Herron later. Herron actually worse against right-handed batters than lefties, and Machado better against right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. So you get that platoon advantage both ways, a reverse platoon split that works out for Machado and does not work out for Dan Herron. Digging a little cheaper, I'm going to go opposite Matt Carpenter. $2,900 Mike Moustakas against right-handed John Lackey. Moustakas has really thrived from that 2-hole for the Royals this year. Really starting to look like the prospect that he was touted to be. The power, not huge, but it's there. And really like the price point of $2,900. So if you're looking to save a little bit of money because you've got Jake Arrieta on the hill and maybe you want to take the top play at second and you want to take the top play at catcher, you can still get a decent play at third base. And digging even deeper, one name, probably my favorite punt of the night, even though I love third base and it's deep, $2,200 Yangarvis Solarte if he's going to lead off again. Yep. Switch hitter, so he's going to get that platoon advantage against Bolsinger. But for $2,200, if you can get a leadoff hitter with any semblance of hitting skills, and Solarte has those, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially in that spacious ballpark there. I mean, he can definitely hit one into the gap, and he's got a little bit of speed there as well.
Yep.
All right, moving on to shortstop. Obviously, you got Troy Tulowitzki and Brandon Crawford at course. Not much analysis necessary there. You're looking for those guys. As you're looking cheaper, you mentioned Matt Duffy might end up getting a start one of the 2 games today. So if he gets a start, usually he hits against lefties instead of against righties. But obviously, with 2 games today, maybe he gets a start. 2.6 would be a nice cheap way to punch your shortstop and get some Coors exposure there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna guess that if he's out of the lineup for game one, expect to see him penciled in, probably at third base, I'm guessing, in place of Casey McGehee. I don't think they're going to have him play both games today. I could be wrong, but given McGehee's age, his defensive shortcomings, and the fact the bat just hasn't been that good, it makes no sense to run him into the ground and have him play 2 games today. So definitely watch that lineup card early, and kind of maybe get on Twitter, see what the beat writers are saying, see if they're leaking whether any guys are expected to get starts in the second game of the doubleheader, because the lineups won't be out by lineup block most likely. Giants' first game starts at 4:05. That game is at Coors. There's going to be runs scored unless Mark Burley's going to magically transport in time and pitch one of his 2-hour gems. Like, you're not going to have lineups. You're not going to have anything resembling lineups. But the beat reporters might already say, Posey getting the night game off or moving to first, or McGehee only going to get 1 start. They don't want to run him into the ground. Who knows? That definitely utilize Twitter to your advantage. But the only other shortstops that I'm looking at, there's 3 of them, and I like them a lot for cheap plays. Jimmy Rollins, going to get the platoon advantage against Ian Kennedy because he's a switch hitter, better against righties than lefties, and most importantly, hits in the top third of the order for the Dodgers. Dodgers going slow lately, but again, still the best offense in baseball against right-handed pitchers this year. Eric Ibar has really thrived in that leadoff role for the Angels. $2,300 gets knuckleballer Stephen Wright. Vegas has a big total on that tonight, so I like Ibar. And interesting lineup move yesterday. Keep an eye on what the Red Sox lineup looks like. Xander Bogaerts ascended to 5th in the order last night. Gets a lefty today in C.J. Wilson. If he's hitting 5th again, really like him at just $2,300. So again, another guy that's damn near the minimum price.
Yeah, I'll throw out one more guy. He worked out pretty well for me last night. He's been hitting the ball pretty well for the first time in his career. Aideni Hechavarria, I believe is how you say it. Is that right? Or is it Hechavarria?
Hechavarria or Hechavarria. I actually heard their telecast pronouncing it many wrong ways and the right way. And now I don't know what the right way is anymore.
All right, well, either way, the guy with the really long name all the way at the bottom that plays for Miami, he's been hitting the ball really well this year. So I usually hit around 8s. You don't love that. But on a short slate, can't be too picky about lineup positions, especially in GPPs. So, all right, moving on to the outfield. No Bryce Harper on tonight's slate, so that's disappointing for all of you that want the guaranteed home run tonight. But Mike Trout obviously really starting to get it going. Maybe he's been watching SportsCenter and seeing Bryce Harper on there. And I got to take a second to see if you saw that slide last night, because that might be the single most ridiculous baseball play I've ever seen in my life.
I actually didn't. I saw the post-game interview with him talking about the slide, and I'm like, what did I miss? And this was at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I'll have to catch it tomorrow.
It was unbelievable. We were talking full speed sliding, slides past the bag and manages to keep one hand on the bag the entire time until his foot touches as he slides his entire body past. Ridiculous baseball play. Either way.
Freakish athlete. Let's just call that what it is.
Let's see Bryce Harper do that. Just saying. Once Bryce Harper does that, he could be Mike Trout.
Nice thing with Mike Trout tonight, and I'm sure if you've watched baseball at all, or MLB Network at all, they've been beating into the ground that Trout's weakness is up in the zone, which means that you're talking fastballs up, letter high, knuckleballer Steve Wright not going to be blowing any fastballs up by him in the upper part of the strike zone, which means you're getting some pitches in Trout's wheelhouse tonight. And I like the odds of him hammering something down in the zone. If that knuckler, even if it does dance, for goodness sakes, if it drops into the bottom of the strike zone, Mike Trout's going to probably put a hurting on it. Behind him, second most expensive outfielder, Giancarlo Stanton. I do like Mike Wright tonight, but considering he throws predominantly fastballs, according to his first start. We're talking about a 96-mile-an-hour fastball he threw about 50% of the time. Threw his 93-mile-an-hour, I don't know if I said that correctly, 96-mile-an-hour fastball, four-seamer. So he's got some chad, but he's throwing that 50% of the time. Another 16% of the time he's throwing the sinker ball. That 66% fastballs. If Stanton's sitting on a fastball and sitting right and gets it where he expects it, that ball might carry 650 feet tonight. Like, Stanton can really turn around a fastball. You're not going to blow that by him. He might want to reconsider his pitch mix to Stanton. Maybe drop in something else.
Like four
maybe,
balls in a row.
I was going to say maybe throw out four fingers and just have the catcher stand up. But I like Stanton. I think the price point's actually fair, and on a slate like tonight, you can afford some of these big bats. Beyond him, Blackman, obviously, at Coors. I do think that you're going to see him probably play both games. If anybody's going to get the night off, it might be Cargo. But I think these guys that are going to get a day off in the doubleheader probably going to get the early one. Unless they want the extended break going into tomorrow, I don't know. But looking at Blackman, I like Dexter Fowler a lot. Again, he's going to get to hit left-handed against Ruby De La Rosa. Jock Peterson leading off against Ian Kennedy looks pretty good. Adam Jones, another guy with a platoon advantage against Herron. Reverse platoon split for Jones, better against righties than lefties over the last 3 years. Dan Herron, opposite, bad against righties, not good against lefties. So that plays right into Jones's hands, and he's my second favorite play in the outfield tonight. Assuming Cargo looks like he's going to play in the late game, he is my favorite outfielder tonight. Gets to hit third, gets to hit against Yusmeiro Petit. Yusmeiro Petit's best pitch is his curveball. We know what curveballs do or don't do at Coors Field, and they don't curve like they're supposed to. So really like Cargo, really like his price point at just $3,200. Cheaper options, Cole Calhoun at $2,900 looks pretty good. Pagan, as long as he's going to play in the late game, $2,700. If it doesn't look like he's going to, you're probably going to get a cheap option from the Giants, maybe a Gregor Blanco or someone of that nature, or Nori Aoki. So definitely kind of get a feel for what might be happening in that late game and get some Giants exposure. And then Cole Calhoun for $2,900 against knuckleballer Stephen Wright looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's going to be some great value that opens up in that Colorado game tonight because of the early game. So definitely keep your eyes on that. And another guy to look at for cheap is Chris Coughlin. We already mentioned how Ruby De La Rosa struggles against lefties. Had a double-dong game at San Diego a couple days ago. And obviously you're not chasing that, but, much, much better park for home runs there in Arizona. So you're looking that way. A guy who I think is just way too cheap. He's not hitting particularly well right now. But Matt Kemp, he gets Bolsinger tonight, $2,500. I mean,
a lot of upside for that price, for sure.
I mean, we saw him earning his paycheck with some Gold Glove plays last night. I think he had 2 of them in the span of 2 innings last night. But I mean, he's going to come back around. He's going to start hitting for a little bit more power, and Matt Kemp likes to show off there in Dodger Stadium. So if there's ever a spot for him, it would be against one of the lesser Dodger pitchers at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with that, especially in GPPs where you're always looking for that high ceiling and maximizing every dollar spent. For $2,500, Kemp's ceiling is quite high, much higher than anybody else at that price point.
Absolutely. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Of course, we have you covered for tonight's slate and every other slate at dailyfantasycafe.com. And we'll see you again tomorrow.